love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I thought the world is all the same.
Good evening, wherever you are in the world.
Good evening.
On this Friday, welcome to another Level Up Your Marriage with Paul and Raquel Blake out of Jamaica. We have been, when we weren't here the last time, we were excited to get back to have another engaging discussion on all things marriage and relationship. Wherever you're joining from this evening, whether the US or somewhere in the Caribbean, England, or Africa, we are happy to have you with us as we go on this discussion tonight. Tonight, our discussion is about work, stress, and burnout in marriage, protecting your relationship from stress and burnout, which is a topic that we oftentimes don't discuss, but I think that is very relevant in how we conduct our relationships. A lot of times we don't think that couples suffer from stress and burnout, but whenever we talk about stress and burnout, it's usually related to work. But also, stress and burnout can also happen in marriage, where even family is concerned. And so we will have that discussion tonight, and we are looking forward to you engaging with us. Remember that if you have a question or a comment, that you can type it in the chat and we will respond. If there's a question, we will try to answer it as best as we can. And peradventure, we need to do some research. We'll also go and do some research and answer it. Welcome, Raquel. How are you?
Thank you, Paul. I'm doing well, considering. Yes, this is a very important topic, and stress is everywhere. Yeah, and you have good stress and bad stress. So I guess the bad stress, when it really can really have a negative impact on the relationship in your marriage, but also at work too. But of course, specifically, we are looking at how we can protect our marriage from stress and burnout. Really, stress is a part of life. So the idea is that as we navigate life and work and home, it's important to find ways to cope because this is a natural part of life. So it's important that we will be sharing with you some ways, some tips in terms of how to navigate very well in managing or dealing with stress and burnout.
All right, so as we get into the discussion, in today's fast-paced world, um, family, personal stress, burnout is really becoming commonplace, and more we are seeing, especially in organizations, speaking to the mental health of their employees, and a lot of employers are recognizing that the, the added stress of work and also family life and social life tends to play an important part in their employees being burnt out. And we also are finding the same thing in terms of relationships in marriage. And I guess it depends on how long. The longer persons are married and the bigger the family, the tendency for the stress to become elevated and burnout become a reality is very much present. we live in a very fast-paced world, as I said before. Just in our conversation last week, somebody indicated that it seems that the world is just coming at us like a freight train. We are just jumping from place to place, from home to church, from church to school. We are all over the place, and oftentimes we don't get to stop and become in tune with life. Get back your bearings, as some would say.
Yeah.
And so we want to look at this whole idea. Can you suffer stress and burnout in your relationship, in your marriage? Can you get to the point in your marriage where you just feel like, boy, you can't do it anymore? It's just too much. If you feel like there is, you are giving, and there's just not more that you can give. And we want to say that this is a reality for many people. It may not be discussed as often, and a lot of people may not admit. But if we pay attention to what is happening around us, we will also realize that there are many people who are even suffering silently, who are wishing that somebody would reach out and help them, give them a helping hand. And so we thought it pertinent to have this particular discussion about stress and burnout in our marital relationships. Anything to add, Raquel?
Well, you know, it's important for couples and for support system caregivers to be able to identify,
Yes.
what are these signs of burnout or undue stress. Because, like I said, stress is a normal part of life.
Mhm.
It's important that we understand that we can't get rid of stress. But when it becomes bad stress, distress, good stress is called
when
use stress, and bad
when
stress
it
is
becomes
called
distress.
distress. Yeah. And distress and bad stress is called distress. So when it becomes
Yes.
distressing, that's when we want to be able to identify these signs so that one partner can step in, or another family member or friend will be able to assist in some way. So what are some of these signs that we
And
should be
but
looking
even
for?
even before you get there, I think one of the things that we also need to point out is that um, burnout and even stress does not, is not something that happens to you suddenly. Usually, it creeps up. And that's why, even remember, I think in the medical field, stress is referred to as a silent killer, because it is, it's something that comes up on you gradually, right?
True.
It doesn't happen suddenly, and people. I think a part of it, why it is so dangerous too, is that a lot of us can function somewhat normally, even while we may be burnt out or even under stress. We will, even if it means to just go through the motions,
Autopilot.
right?
Autopilot.
Or to function on autopilot. And but the thing though, one can only function on autopilot for so long, and no more. So we want to point out that burnout, creeps up on us, right? And people experience burnout even without realizing it. People experience stress without realizing it. And so it is important that we are able to identify those signs that will indicate that we are either, under undue stress, or we are heading towards burnout. One of the first ones that we can point out is emotional exhaustion. Um, your spouse seems to be constantly drained or irritable even after a full night's rest. And this, I think this is one that many of us can relate to. We clamor to go to bed early, And even when we get to bed early, we find that we get 8 or 9 hours sleep, and we are still very, very tired in the morning. That is a sign that you may be heading towards burnout. So yeah, that is one. Emotional exhaustion, irritability. You know, you are snapping at your spouse, and you can't
No
even,
apparent reason.
for no apparent reason. You can't. There's no logical, rational reason why you should be snapping or feeling this irritable. And we talk about spouses, but even sometimes for those of us who have families, sometimes we become irritable with our children, and angry with our children, and we are not able to even identify or even explain those emotions. So emotional exhaustion is something that we should check from every now and then if we are experiencing it. Then there is the loss of enthusiasm for work, or personal interests, right? Persons will stop talking, and they stop talking about work. The things that they once enjoyed no longer seem so enjoyable to them, right? And let me just zero in here, Raquel. And we know that in the household, many men don't cook. Most times, I don't know if it's a fair statement, but women tend to be the ones who are in the kitchen a lot. And but women tend to love the kitchen. They kind of love that
When the meal is ready.
taking care of the family aspect, right?
When the meal is ready.
But I think it can get to a point where sometimes the kitchen becomes like a place of slavery, where where the thing that you enjoy doing for your family becomes so burdensome. Becomes more of a duty than something
No
that you
joy.
enjoy, right? You don't find the joy that you used to find in it, right? So that is one. For men, it may be other stuff. And we know, we as men, we like the gardening, we like the outside, and all of that. But all of these things can that we enjoy. If we are heading towards burnout and stress, we kind of begin to lose the excitement and the joy for doing these things. So even for work, yeah, you get up and you go to work just because you have to, not because you want to,
Right.
right?
And even the snapping at your co-workers, and
Snapping at the
becoming
co-workers.
annoyed
All
for
right.
no reason.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I think at that point, then that's why it's important to have this connection with your good connection with your spouse or a coworker, so that they, just in case you are not noticing it, somebody else would notice and point it out to you,
Yeah.
because
That is
of a
not
fact,
that's not your normal
that's not your
behavior.
normal
True. True.
behavior.
True.
So
I
it's good
agree.
to check in and
To
what's
check
up,
in from
what's
time
up,
to time.
Raquel.
Yes. And there's isolation. Increased isolation. Persons who would normally they are the life of the party. They are
You don't like
they
to
like to be
engage.
around people, and people like to be around them.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly this person just draw into themselves and go off by themselves to just to be by themselves. Somebody who is normally an extrovert, just revert to introvert tendencies, and that is indicating that something is not right.
And even
Something.
somebody who's not an extrovert, but somebody who would be involved, would be a part of the conversation or a connection,
Or you
and
might find
they
somebody
just
who's
realize,
withdrawn becoming more withdrawn.
right. So that's that too.
Yeah.
That too. So it's noticeably obvious that this person is in real isolation.
Yes.
So those times it's important not to dismiss it and say, oh, that's how the person is.
Yeah.
It's
What
always important
I
to just
can
check in.
I can look at an example too of even bring it in the context of the relationship. Couple who normally they like to go out,
Mhm.
and they go out for an event, and normally when you go out, you would stay and you enjoy whatever activity you are out doing, and you find that as you go out to whether to dinner or whatever, as soon as you sit down or begin to enjoy it, the one person wants to go home, and that becomes something that is consistent,
Yeah.
right? And normally this person is not like that, right? Normally this person will be out enjoying everything and all of that, and you go out for this particular date or event, and within 5-10 minutes your spouse is saying that they want to go home, right? And they just genuinely don't want to be there.
Yeah.
That tells you that something is off, and something that you need to pay attention to. So that kind of so when we talk about isolation, it's not just isolation as within the context of home, or going off into one room by yourself, but isolation can mean so many different things, right? And that particular one is because, again, sometimes when we see this kind of thing happening, Raquel, we write it off as just somebody being moody. That's
Right.
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, just moody, and sometimes is a way of escape for us to describe our spouses as moody and all that. But we need to look if or check if there's something going on that needs to be addressed.
Yes,
That
actually.
that our spouse may be crying out for help,
Yeah.
right? So that's another one. Which other one we have?
Well, I guess the other one, which most person can relate to, is the physical symptoms.
The physical symptoms, yes.
Somebody who might not have headache very often, begins to complain of having
Yes.
headaches every day,
Headaches,
day and night.
digestive issues, frequently sick, somebody who is normally healthy and all of that. You find that they are catching like a cold every 2 weeks. They're having a cold or some kind of issue,
Or probably they just call in sick
or
for whatever reason.
or yes,
somebody who is usually
yeah,
present at work for majority of the time, would normally go off on vacation at their time, but then you notice a change where
yes.
every 2 weeks.
Or your spouse who you're in the house with the spouse, and normally they are up by a certain time, and you find that the sleeping hours are becoming longer and longer, right? And you are leaving the house probably to go to work, and your spouse is still in bed, and that is not normal, because normally your spouse would be up and about at a certain time.
True.
Right? It's not something to just simply glance over. Because again, this with us kind of narrow this down to being tired.
Yes.
Right? And truth is, anybody can be tired, but that kind of consistency where this person is just every other day, this person is in bed not getting up or sleeping too long.
Yeah.
Right? That can be a sign of burnout. When our spouses are getting 10, 12 hours rest, and we say, boy, they are resting because they are tired. It might be something else. And so we need to be able to pay attention to these kind of things, because it might not, what seem to be might not be so. All right. So remember, as we dive into this topic tonight, and we might not finish it just for tonight, but I think it's a discussion that is worth having probably more than one part, because this is a reality that many of us face. Might not be facing now, but will face sometime in the future. And when we started, I indicated to the fact that the longer you are married and the bigger your family is, you tend to have that kind of issue coming up, and also families with young children.
Right, I was going to make the point that and also families
When you
who are
have
very engaged
yes,
in other
yes,
activities outside of
you have
work
3
and
children
so on.
who are 1 or 2 years apart. All 3 of them are running up and down in the house at the same time, and one, and that is why it is important, Raquel, that wives and husbands, especially where children are concerned, that there has to be a partnership. Right? Taking care of the children can't be left on one person. It has to be a partnership, because what you'll find, one person is going to be burnt out and the other one is rested. Right? One person is going to be under stress and the other one is quite all right. And I think sometimes, well, at different stages in our families, that might become a reality. So it works at stages when our families are very young, when our children are very young. But even as our children grow up and become teenagers, it can take on a different dimension. As married couples also, we transition from careers and all kind of other stuff where our work is concerned. And if we are not careful, studying is another thing, Raquel. We find that in the age that we live in, especially couples who are in the prime of their life, they are constantly studying. And the kind of world that we live in now, back in when our parents were growing up, then one could survive on a first degree. Right? One could be at the top of their game just having a first degree. Today is not that, right? So we are constantly involved in advancing ourselves for the betterment of ourselves and also our families. And if we are not careful, this can lead to us being stressed and also being burnt out. I remember having a conversation with somebody some time ago, and she said to me, boy, she has been studying for the last 15 years nonstop.
But she has a family?
She has a family. She has a family. And she said that she can't recognize herself not studying.
Oh.
And I said, boy, I said that is not good.
Yeah, you see that? Yeah.
I said to her that is not good. It just struck me when she said, I can't recognize myself not studying, because as a matter of fact, from the day I know her, she has always been studying.
Well, that one might need a little more
That's right.
investigation because
And so she's at the point now where she is burnt out.
right, but similar in terms of studying, it can also be overworking.
It can be overworking also. Yes.
Many good things can become a stumbling block or a sign of, because nothing is wrong with working or even doing too much exercise, too much studying, because it might be maybe type of escape, might be a type of avoidance.
Yes.
So in a case where somebody notices those things, whether the individual or the spouse notice, then it's something worth investigating, because uh we want to have a balanced life. We talk about the wheel of life and so on, where you strike a good balance between work and family and self development and
Yes.
your health and so on.
Yes.
So it's important now that if you notice these things about yourself, or if somebody points out to you, that it's important to just pause and check it out.
Yes, true.
Do some self reflection, do some evaluation to see what's happening. Because really, that's a big sign. That's a big red flag.
Yes.
That's a big red flag.
Yeah. Yes. So how do we know, Raquel? All right. How does stress impact marriages? Right? How does it impact a marriage?
Well, we are talking about it here, where we talk about the when you snap at your wife or your husband without reason, you're becoming irritated and agitated. And of course, you're gonna have disagreements. You're gonna have emotional. You're gonna become distant. You're gonna have some kind of distance. You're going to have breakdown of communication. So
Yes.
there's a ripple effect.
Yes.
So it not only affects you as individual, but it also affects the other family members. So it's important that you're going to say something.
As I look at the subject, Raquel, burnout and stress. We know that stress is a part of life, because stress can either be good or bad. I would also want us to look at the fact that, I don't want to say burnout is normal, but I think that as we progress through our lives and our relationships, that the majority of us will reach that point in our relationships where we we have to do some kind of evaluation, right? Are we doing the same old, same old? Are we simply just going through the motion? Because one of the features of burnout in relationships is actually going through the motions, right? Doing the same old, over and over again, and it becomes monotonous. It becomes boring, and all of that. So I I'm trying to avoid using the word that burnout is normal, because it's like,
No, it's
I
not.
don't it's not I don't think it's a normal thing, but I think it's really a feature, right? It is a feature of relationships, and it has, just as stress, it has a rippling effect on the relationship, right?
Right, because
Right, it has a ripple effect on the relationship. It can lead to emotional distance. It can lead to communication breakdowns, and I think the worst one is that it can lead to resentment. Right? In our counseling, we have seen, we have counseled couples who would have come to us and said that at the beginning of the relationship, how much they enjoyed each other. And we know, we have heard the horror stories in our practice where counsel said they can't stand each other. This person that you once professed to love so much, now you are saying that, boy, I cannot stand this person.
right, you see, so I guess what important to make a distinction in terms of burnout and stress. Burnout, the effects of burnout, definitely can affect one's marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the term burnout is usually usually tied to work related stuff where
Mm-hmm.
you're no longer something that you would feel confident and competent. You kind of feel lack of enthusiasm and stuff like that. So as a result of the burnout that might be happening at work, it will definitely have a serious impact on your marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Along with stress and so on. So,
But,
like you
but
said,
but couldn't the same thing work for the relationship, Raquel?
where you have
When you get married, you're just married, you feel like, boy, you can take on the whole world.
Mhm.
This is the ideal relationship. This is the ideal spouse. And come what may, we can weather all storms of life. Right? But as life sets in, as reality sets in, as we try to achieve the different goals, the house, the car, the children, the education, and then we have the extended family issues also. If we are not careful, these things can also lead, the same kind of burnout that we experience in the workplace can
yeah,
become our reality
reality.
also in the relationship,
True, true,
right?
true,
So
true.
and that's why when we began the discussion, I also said that many times we hear of burnout, we normally put it as something that is work related or career related,
Yes,
right? But any aspect of our lives can
we can
can
experience it in other
what,
aspects of our
what I
life.
don't want to say, any aspect of our lives that we are not paying attention to can become a source of burnout,
Yes,
right?
sure.
Because I think that at the heart of it, one of the key things is the fact that we need to pay attention to our lives. Because it is easy, Raquel, to, as we said before, to operate on autopilot, right? It is also easy to operate as the Energizer Bunny, right? And we know, remember the ad with the Energizer Bunny, that as long as the battery is alive, the bunny
Going, going,
keeps going
going,
on,
going,
going
going,
on and
going.
on and on, But one of the things about the battery is that the battery is going to run out at some point in time, right? The battery is going to lose life.
Right. And so, for that battery to not run out and lose life, so there has to be a good balance.
There has to be a good balance, and yes,
So,
and I think that is one I think we will probably discuss
so,
at length.
yeah. So even the energizing body, or you always talk about the fact that you're the life of the party. It's also important for time to take time to pause, to rest.
Yes.
The greatest athletes, the greatest professionals. It's important. That's why you have vacation time.
Yeah.
That's why you have downtime. And so I would propose that daily couples, make time for downtime, make time for to cuddle with each other, to communicate, because every single day we go through different kinds of stress, and then at the end of the day it's important, to come together and help each other to de-stress, help each other to
what is
relax.
interesting, Raquel? We just came from in August. We were in not August, in July. We were in Aruba, and we left Aruba and went to Florida. And basically that was our vacation for the 2 or 3 weeks. And it dawned on me in from Aruba to Florida how much we can lose touch with life.
Mhm.
Because again, you're going on and you're not paying attention. That week we spent in Florida, a few days we spent in Florida, you would not realize how many things we missed. And just the fact that we were able to not be at work, to be in a space where we were just driving from one place to the end, doing some shopping, talking to family, and all of that. You would not realize how much you would have missed.
True.
That week we spent in Aruba. Again, even though being a part of the committee, it by itself is a tiring thing. But again, you will not realize the kind of rejuvenation that you feel just by being able to sit in an audience, hearing somebody else speak.
Well, yeah. So you're what you're doing is like you're refilling yourself.
You're refilling yourself.
Right. So that's why it's so important to de-stress and to take vacation time, take your wellness day, because it's by doing those things that you are refilling and building your resilience,
Yes,
so that you
true.
can handle the stress of life,
True.
and minimize the burnout. Because I guess there has to be a good balance where um we talk about that all work and no play makes Jack
Yeah.
and Jill dull boys and girls.
Dull boys and girls.
Right.
Right.
So there has to be a good balance between work and play. And when the scale is on where work is so much, then you're gonna have the stress, the burnout, the agitation, the snapping, the arguments, and then you realize that it's important to take a break to de-stress.
So the key, what is that one? The key that we are looking at in terms of stress and burnout is really, because a lot of it is work related.
A lot of it is
A lot of it is work related, and overworking is in, but again, Raquel, the how unconsciously we do it is something that just strikes me, because again, we are doing this thing with the best of intention, right? We work, we go to work to make sure that our families are taken care of, right? We want to make sure that our children get the best education. We want to make sure that our spouses are taken care of. We want to make sure that we have the health insurance and all of that. And these things are good things, right? Because nobody would fault us for wanting the betterment of our families. But there's also the part that many times we don't create boundaries where these things are concerned.
True.
Right? So the problem itself might not be the work. The problem is that we are
The individuals.
we are very neglectful when it comes to setting boundaries.
Yes.
Right? So what are some of the boundaries that we can look at? Again, the fast-paced world, home life,
Mm-hmm.
boundaries are important because one of the ideas of a boundary is that a boundary is there to protect. Right? That is why you create a boundary. It is there to facilitate protection.
Right, and it's protecting, everybody concerned. It's
Yes.
protecting the wife or the husband, and even the workspace. Because in work, in the workspace, if you're overstressed and burnout, it affects your performance.
Mm-hmm.
Similarly, in the home and in the marriage, if you're overworked, and so the boundaries, there are many benefits to the boundaries.
Yes.
For the family, for home, for work, because it's through the boundaries. And the boundary that we're talking about here is that it's okay that if it's 9 to 5, leave at 5.
Yes.
If it at home, if it's dinner time, it's dinner time. If it's at home, it's family time, then or it's time for date night, then date night. We turn off the TV or we put away the devices so that we can focus on each other. We can zero into each other.
Somebody asked me a few weeks ago, how do I protect myself from the not carrying home all of the baggage of work? And and she asked that from a counseling perspective. And I said to her that, boy, when I go home in the evenings, I turn off my phone or I put my phone on silent because that is a way of protecting me. Right? I don't take certain calls after certain hours because again, I have to protect my space. I have to protect my mental faculties. And it comes to what we are discussing now, the unplugging time.
Yes.
Right? And I think, Raquel, as preachers, unfortunately I'm to hit my brothers with this. The hardest person to get to unplug is a preacher. We don't do it very well.
Well.
Right? And many times our families suffer because of it. We don't know how to unplug. We have people calling us all ungodly hours of the night. We have people demanding all of our time and effort at various times, sometimes to the detriment of our families. We are always in demand, and as a minister, we find it difficult to say no. We find it difficult to say, I can't do it now. And oftentimes it gets I wouldn't say it gets the better of us. It gets the worst of us.
Exactly. So that's one of the boundaries too. That is
unplug.
Right,
yes,
unplug. And it's
yes.
okay to say no.
It's okay.
Persons seem to think that say no is a selfish thing, but it's not really a selfish thing. Or if you can't say no, you can say, well, let me get back to you. Let me think about it. Let me check my schedule or something that gives you a chance. Because you do have persons who find it difficult to say no or find it difficult to set boundaries. And so, for ministers and individuals in general who might have a challenge in setting good boundaries or saying no, then they can start, rather than running, they can creep.
Start saying small no's.
Right. That's let me get back. Let me check and get back to you because you kind of practice and you delay, and then you might come back to say, it's not possible. And also, you can say no without giving explanation.
Yes, true. True.
You don't have to give an explanation because that is your right.
Yes. Yeah, I notice in the work world. Okay, sorry, we were muted a while ago. Yeah, in the work world, a lot of times when you go in for interviews and stuff, they will give you a document, and somewhere in the document is stated that you must be accessible on the weekends and various hours after work.
Well, I hope that. Well, I guess it depends on the kind of job. But I'm sure many organizations are striking to help employees to have good work-life balance, So I'm hoping that
Yeah, and what I was going to say also, that may be true of the employer, but one of the things that we have to tell persons is that you ought not to allow yourself to be accessible at all times because you have a life.
right, work
Right.
is only one.
Even in marriage, Raquel, we would like that we are accessible to our families at all time. And when I say family, I'm not talking about those within the household. And even within the household, it can be the same thing. But we shouldn't be accessible to our families at all time, right? And we know that many couples have suffered because of it. And the husband who is attached to his mother, that every time the mother calls, you know, regardless of what is happening in the house, he runs to her, beckon and call. The daughters who can't, absent themselves from their mothers. Their mothers play an important part in their marital relationship.
Yeah.
So you have to set boundaries.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was about to say. Setting boundaries. And setting boundaries, as I said, it's a win-win for everybody because you understand as an individual that you can't be in all places at all times.
Yes.
And so setting boundaries is an act of love.
Yes.
It's not a selfish act.
Yes.
And it's important that part of setting boundaries that you would explain or say to mother or father or employer, so on and so on. And you say it respectfully.
Yeah.
On the weekends, I don't check my emails on the weekend, so I'll definitely answer you on Monday.
Yes, definitely.
And talk about, as you said earlier, about ministers find it hard to unplug. There's a question.
Why is it so difficult for preachers to unplug? Very good question. And I think it is because of the fact that the era in which we work, we work a lot with people, and as preachers, we tend to see a lot too. So we see a lot of the suffering that many people don't see. We see a lot of the brokenness in people that many people don't get to see. And our emotions, our ability to empathize, I would say, is more elevated sometimes even than the average member. And when we look at the heart of who Jesus is, Jesus was a people person. Jesus was always in contact with people, right? And I think that is one of the things that cause us problems. We want to be the persons that fix everything, right?
And that's not possible.
And that is not possible, right?
Sorry, go ahead.
But let me show you how much that is not possible. As much as we want to be like Christ, we have to be like Christ. Christ, I think in the book of Matthew, when at one point in time, when I think it's just after I think he came from preaching the Sermon on the Mount, when it says that he went away to a quiet place.
Exactly.
So Jesus took time to unplug.
Yeah, exactly, but it's also something that as preachers are preaching school and learning about
and yes,
it's important. It's an important thing that
it's not something that is stressed
and encouraged in
our preaching schools
and strategies of how to do it as well. So
which is one of the reasons that prompted me also to write Shepherd in the Flock, because that is part that it deals with part that also that this idea of unplugging is important, because we take on so much of the burden of ministry that it can become overwhelming. And why it is so critical, Raquel, is that our being burdened by ministry has a direct effect on our families.
Exactly. So it's important, just like regular husband and wife, the minister also should make time to take time for vacation with his family. Take time to go out and have some ice cream or go on a date.
And you don't have to be traveling to a foreign land.
No, go on a date, go on a weekend or something. and take breaks. Just like instead of being in the office from 9 to 5, take your lunchtime.
Yes.
You
Yes.
go outside. Get some sunlight, do some exercise, or call your wife.
Yeah. I agree. So
Even in the midst of the day, you don't have to wait for a vacation time to unplug.
Yeah, but
It's
Raquel,
important that throughout a day or
even when I'm in office, if I'm not careful, because I go into the office, like sometimes I'm at the office from as early as 7 o'clock after dropping off Timothy. And if I'm not careful, when I go into that office, I will sit at that desk from 7 o'clock. And if I'm not careful, by the time I hold up my head, it's 12. And I might stop and eat some lunch and go back again. And then by the time I hold up my head, it's 2 or 3 o'clock. So what I've been doing is that at intervals, I just get up, walk around the church building.
All right. I was just gonna say that because
I just circle around the church building and
sedentary lifestyle is not healthy either. So
I will just stop and stand up outside for a little while and take in the sunshine or the breeze that is blowing, because I realize that if I'm not careful, I will sit around that desk and I will take the phone calls, being on the computer writing something or doing something, and I'm just there.
Right, and what you're doing is all good enough.
Yes, it is.
You're doing something productive. You're doing something helpful for the flock or for the church. But it's in the midst of it, it's important to take breaks.
Yeah.
Take short breaks.
So unplug. Unplug.
Right. So unplug is not something that you necessarily have to wait until it's time that in the middle of the day. Just like they recommend, don't use your phone the first thing in the morning. Get those stuff out of the way. Then you might look at the phone or look at the email. In terms of strategies, that says, okay, take care of your mental health, take care of your body, take care of, you eat and you break your fast and so on. And in order to be productive, in order to be resilient, it's important that we strike that balance between work and play.
Yes.
Getting some sunlight.
Along with unplugging is also to encourage work-life balance, right?
Exactly. That's what we're talking about.
Don't overcommit. And again, Raquel, preachers suffer this too. We overcommit many times.
Well,
do you know
what do you do to prevent that? What have you been doing recently
Raquel,
to prevent
that? I can speak from a minister's perspective. One of the most difficult things to do is to say no. Well, because we want to help. Right?
Yes, you want to help, but you're not the only one who can help. So that's why I said earlier that until it becomes easier to say no outrightly.
Yes.
And you're not gonna just say no and be abrupt or rude.
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, sometimes you
might be not no. Not no.
Right. And the other person,
right?
If you can,
or you refer them to somebody else.
That's something I can do right now.
Not something that I can do now.
Right now, based on my schedule or based on previous commitment, it's not something I can do right now. And if you don't have like a commitment, but you might have a commitment with your family. You might have, this weekend is my rest weekend, or this weekend is my family weekend. So the commitment don't have to be that you're preaching for the next 3-4 weeks, or you have some Bible study or so. It can be a commitment to family time that this weekend. True. So the importance of striking a balance, that as a minister, as a leader, that the same way that it's important that if you have you're gonna see one of your parishioners, you're gonna see a client. It's important that you factor time for your family. So if it's a family time and you're asked to commit to something else,
so honor your commitments.
And say no.
I agree. Right. So designate the unplugged time, encourage work-life balance, but there's also supporting each other's boundaries. That's important. So respect your spouse's need for downtime or personal space to decompress. That is important after a long day. And I think in one of our previous discussions, Raquel, we had I think we had touched on this a little bit, that as spouses we need to understand that we need to spend time with our own kind. So our wives need to have their girl time, and our husbands need to have time with the other men, right? And it must not be seen as me neglecting my spouse, right? Because again, and especially when the relationship is very young, right? When the marriage is very young, this tends to be a problem more than any other time in the relationship. Where, because we know when you just get married, we behave as if we are joined at the hip, and we must not be out of each other's presence, not even a minute, right? But it is important, and I think the earlier we set that as a thing in our relationship, it becomes better for us, right? That even before the marriage, the wedding day, I think that this is something that needs to be discussed. This is something that spouses need to have some kind of discussion of the importance of interacting with others outside of the marriage,
True.
right? The men, we need time to sit down and talk with our male counterparts, right? Our spouses need time to, you know, call their girlfriends, go for go shopping, go for tea, right? Sit and have a discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you're in the house, your spouse must be able to call over a few friends and you vacate the house if needs be, or find another room and lock up in, right? But this is important. So a part of protecting ourselves from stress and burnout is also respecting each other's boundaries, respecting each other's needs for interaction with other persons.
Yeah, and also, I guess another dimension of it too is that um, if I come home, feeling stressed and overwhelmed, it's also important that my spouse, you, or in terms of talking generally here,
Mm-hmm.
if I come home, from a very hard and long day, it might be unreasonable to expect that I'm going to just jump into the kitchen.
Yes,
So it's
true,
important,
true,
but
true.
there must be some communication.
Mm-hmm.
I had a rough day today. I'm going to take a little nap first. Do you
A
mind?
cup of tea,
A cup of tea,
greet you with the bed slippers.
or something, because you spoke about earlier about that the wife usually likes to go into the kitchen, but it's important too that sometimes the husband take the lead and you had a rough day today, honey. Have a seat. I'm gonna get some tea for you,
Yeah.
or I'll start dinner, and so there has to be those kind of considerations too. You know, don't just expect that you're just going to, in the same way that the cliche is that when the husband comes home, he sits and he turns on the TV or he reads the newspaper. He's de-stressing,
Yeah, true,
He's
true.
de-stressing. So it's also reasonable.
And he must be allowed to do that,
Right.
And
And it's also reasonable
yeah,
that the wife
it
be allowed
is,
to do that, and the husband
and
don't
that's
think.
why we say there has to be a discussion,
Right.
right? There has to be a discussion.
Yeah.
And by the way, Raquel, I would also let us take it beyond just even the marital relationship, because sometimes this is also true for children.
True. True.
Do
When
you
we
know
want his children,
you
yes.
do you
Want
know
to
how
balance
do
it
you
out.
know how many children feel stressed and burnt out because when as soon as they come home, what do we expect them to do? Don't start homework. Just imagine this child is spending 8 hours at school doing schoolwork. The minute they step into the house, you expect them to just get on top of schoolwork, and they're on top of that until all wee hours of the night. I mean, that can lead them to having anxiety, all kind of anxiety, and so it is
Children can be
important.
stressed too.
Children can, and we probably need to look at that as a topic further on, that looking at the stress that children go through, because let us not get it twisted. Children get stressed. Children can become burnt out as adults.
True.
Right, so those things are, set, respect each other's boundaries. And the last one we want to look at, Raquel, before we close off tonight's program, right? As I said, I think we are going to have a second part to this discussion: the importance of prioritizing time for as a couple. Right, this is important.
Very important.
Right, and make the regular date nights or time to connect. Right, I never say it must be non-negotiable. Right, right. So when I said non-negotiable, it doesn't mean that it cannot be adjusted.
Based
Right?
after
But
discussion with
yes,
the
but
spouse.
it must be something that both persons understand, that this is part of building our relationship. And why it is important, Raquel: life keeps life in. I don't know where I get that term from, but I like it. Life keeps life in. Do you realize that life does not slow down until you slow it down?
Right. It's up to the individuals to
Right?
slow it down, because
Life is going to move at the pace that life moves at. You are the ones that have the responsibility of slowing down, and making time for each other is important, right? We can fill the 24 hours of the day with activities, and all of them may be good intentioned, but are they the best for the relationship, right? They, I have had a discussion many times with husbands who they are so focused on providing for the family that they do provide for the family, but eventually they lose the same family that they're providing for.
because they're not there emotionally and physically and
Because
mentally.
yes, you are there to provide.
Working.
You are there working, and we know it's a biblical thing that we should work to support our families. But it is not the end all of all things. There has to be the balance, because can you imagine you work to provide your children and your spouse with all of these material things that um, are sometimes non-essential where life is concerned? You know, I remember having a discussion some time ago with I think it was in a probably a children's seminar that I was doing, where when you ask children what is most important to them, it's not the things that their parents can provide them. And we know that children love things. Children love to receive things. But I guarantee that our presence as parents is more important to our children than the things that we give them.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
Even as married couples, Raquel, the time, the love, the conversation that we give to our spouses is more important than the things that we give them.
The attention, being present.
The attention, being present. Right?
Being present, you know, for conversation, for affection.
When we die and leave this earth, I don't think any of our children are going to say, boy, daddy didn't give me a PS4. And daddy didn't buy me a bicycle. Daddy didn't. No, I don't think our children will remember. What our children will remember, that boy, daddy wasn't present. Right? And those things are important. Our spouses, you know, we as we grow in our relationship, we find that some of the things that we consider to be so important in the early part of our lives are not important. Not just, you know, what we find, presence is more important than anything else.
Exactly.
Right? So we need to be able to protect that particular space and not allow ourselves to become stressed and burnt out to the point that we lose our relationships.
You know, it's important. You know, it's so important. So it's okay. We're talking about the fact that it's okay it's important and necessary to set boundaries, because these boundaries will help us to strike a balance between navigating, you know, the stress at work, the challenges at home. And with these boundaries, yes, it's important to make time for work, make time for family, make time for couples, make time for children. And similarly, you know, one of the questions we thank Macpherson Honorary, who asked the question, why is it so difficult for people to unplug? You know, so it's important for everyone to learn to unplug and, you know, de-stress and decompress, because in the midst of all of the challenges of life, it's important to pause and to find out what really matters.
Yes.
What are the things that matter the most that you should give attention to? And it's important. We're sending the message that it's important to pause.
Yes.
It's important to slow down. And they say life is life in, but it's important that you slow down, because if you or I don't slow down, then illness will cause us to slow down.
And yeah, don't
No, we're gonna
touch on that one.
just preparing you for part two. You know.
Right. So yes, so recognize the signs of stress and burnout, emotional exhaustion, loss of enthusiasm for work and personal interest, isolation, and the physical symptoms, which we will go into at length. We might even have a 3-part program rather than a 2, because just the physical symptoms alone is a whole discussion by itself. We are thankful that we have had you tonight, and wherever you have joined from, you have been our special guests. And even if you have not posted a comment or a question tonight, we also want to tell you that even when you catch the replay, if you have a question or comment, you can always email us at levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. That's levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. And we will send you an answer. If you want to be on our Level Up Your Marriage email list, you can also send us your email address at that same email, or you can send me a WhatsApp message at 876-835-6524. That's 876-835-6524. And I will definitely add you to our email list, right? So until next time, this is Raquel and Paul wishing you a good night, and that you continue to level up your marriage. God bless.
Have a good night.
They can never take the love out in this place. They can never take the love